So, last week, modern Spongebob took a turn for the better with the episode There Will Be Grease. This week, the episode Seaman Sponge Haters Club did the exact opposite.
Hey!
First things first, this title card is pretty good. It has that classic feel with the background but a new font. The background is reused though, with new colors. I think it's from either it should be SpongeBob versus the big one, right? I'm not sure, but yeah, it's reused. But I mean, that is basically most of modern SpongeBob anyway. SpongeBob seems to be keeping his new model from There Will Be Grease, which is good. He looks a lot better right now. So this episode starts with Mr. Puff. Did I just misgender Mrs. Puff? Mrs. Puff, Bubble Bass, Plankton, and the mailman all pull up to Squidward's house, as SpongeBob is a bit confused. I mean, this whole scene is kind of unnecessary, as we have seen the title card already. We know that this is a, hating SpongeBob club. There is no mystery to the viewer as to why they are here. Squidward welcomes them all to the 431st We Hate SpongeBob Club meeting. I guess it's a bit better that they at least say they don't mean him any harm, which I hope stays true for the whole episode. We get a kind of new art style as Mrs. Puff shares the story of her latest sponge-related pain. And in this segment, SpongeBob looks terrifying. Bro looks like something straight out of one of those, terrible adult cartoons. This shot reminds me a lot of that scene in The Getaway. It's pretty close to being reused animation. I mean, he makes kind of the exact same face here. And yeah, SpongeBob is a terrible driver. We all know that already. Bubble Bass tells his story, and we sadly don't get a new art style here. I think they went all out with the first segment and then just kind of didn't bother with the rest. SpongeBob made the food here, and yet he is screaming about how it isn't perfect. Isn't SpongeBob supposed to be like the best fry cook in the world at this point? He is really annoying here anyway, which is the point, but I still feel like they really overdo it. This story takes up more than 2 minutes of the episode, and it's just the same joke over and over. SpongeBob won't let Bubble Bass eat anything. Then we get some, I think, fetish stuff that I would like not to discuss. All you need to know is that SpongeBob comes out of Bubble Bass's belly button. Next is Plankton's turn, and in his story, SpongeBob is a moth, which is a bit funny, I guess. I mean, it's about as dumb as the average modern SpongeBob episode. I mean, Patrick has been a horse and a dog, so why shouldn't SpongeBob be a moth? SpongeBob messes up everything in the chum bucket as Karen and Plankton try to stop him. They get locked out and Plankton cries. Squidward goes next and basically tells us good neighbors. SpongeBob looks terrifying once again, and once again is really annoying and really unlikable. Patrick spawns inside the house to eat everything. Then SpongeBob burns Squidward's house down. So SpongeBob burns down Squidward's house and then basically forces the rest of the characters to go stay with him while Squidward just sits and looks miserable and dead inside. This shot of Patrick with all the toothpicks in his mouth is so damn disgusting. I don't even know what to say. Tell me how this episode is any better than Good Neighbors. SpongeBob is arguably much worse here than in that episode, because at least in Good Neighbors, him and Patrick were trying to cheer Squidward up. Here, they just want to ruin Squidward's life. Or I mean, it's mostly just SpongeBob. All Patrick does is eat some stuff. SpongeBob, he sets fire to Squidward's house. I mean, Jesus. This episode is just character assassination. SpongeBob comes off as so incredibly unlikable. At least in A Pal for Gary, as terrible as this episode is, he had some grasp of the situation, even though he was clearly in the wrong in that episode. I'm not saying that name again. In this episode, he is just a plot device designed to ruin every other character's life. The only thing I could say as a positive about this episode is that they experiment a bit with the animation and art style. The positive part is that they experimented, not the actual animation, because this episode looked like shit. I have no idea why SpongeBob looks like a character from Mr. Pickles in the Mrs. Puff and Bubble Bath segments, but he does, and it's terrible. Modern SpongeBob seems to be heading right down again, because right after they took a step in the right direction in There Will Be Grease, Seaman Sponge Haters Club takes 3 steps in the wrong direction. It's crazy to me how people always talk about the modern seasons being better than seasons 6 through 8, but episodes like this fail in the exact same way as those bad episodes from those seasons. Good Neighbors came out 17 years ago, and this episode shows that the writers haven't learned a lesson in those 17 years. Seaman Sponge Haters Club and what's that other episode called? Squidward Sick Days. Probably has more Squidward torture than season 8, if I'm gonna be honest. And let's not forget that modern SpongeBob usually only have the plots going for them. Because this episode is less funny than the terrible season 6 or 8 episodes. This episode has worse animation than those episodes. This episode does more character assassination than those terrible episodes. Sure, A Pal for Gary made me hate SpongeBob, but this episode made me realize something entirely else. SpongeBob as a character doesn't work anymore. It's really saying something when I feel bad for Bubble Bath in an episode. Thanks for watching.